Hi everyone, I'm Lynette Zang, Chief Market Analyst here at ITM Trading and a very, very grateful prepper. So today on Mantra Monday, I'm just going to jump right in because they want us to think that inflation is going down, but definitely not food inflation, and we're seeing this all around the world. And what do we know? We absolutely know that during these transitions, food is the single biggest issue for most people. So what are you doing to ensure your food security? The most recently available monthly data shows rates of increase on food above 5%. And it doesn't matter whether you are in a low-income country or in a high-income country. In fact, 78.9% of high-income economies have food inflation above 5%. This is making food unaffordable for most people, and that's why we're seeing the rise. Because typically, as we go through hyperinflation, most of the population ends up in abject poverty. Don't want that to happen to anybody here. So what are you doing for your food security? You can also get a lot of pleasure just out of going out into the garden. If you can't go out into the garden, then there are other ways for you to put back long storage food. Or buy an extra bag of rice and a few cans of tomatoes. I mean, we should have learned something in 2020 about how fragile the supply chain around food is. So you really have to position yourself to feed yourselves, your families, your neighbors, whoever's in your community. In real terms, food price inflation exceeded overall inflation in 80.1% from 166 countries. What's that tell you? You better get serious about making sure that you have food. Water is another big issue. I mean, you can't live without food, you can't live without water, and you need water to create the food. So what we're seeing on this particular heat map of the US are areas that are abnormally dry. So in these yellow areas, 45.35% of US is abnormally dry. Then you have 25.54% is in moderate drought, 9.77% in severe drought, 2.3% in extreme drought. So what are you doing for your water security? Now, David Dubine talks about the grand solar minimum and how what's happening around the planet is actually a normal occurrence that happens every 100 or so years, maybe more than that. Forgive me if you're watching this, but we'll catch up on it. So, what about all of the talk about global climate change? Is that really about an ability or the way to tax people extra money? Or is this just a normal occurrence? Either way, you've got to do something to make sure that you always have water to drink, to clean, sanitation, to grow food, etc. It is critical. And there are so many different options. Now, obviously, you guys know I live in Arizona, and we've been in drought for a while, and this has been an extraordinarily brutal summer. I have pools, I have ponds that can help me with my water needs. What are you doing for yours? And of course, let's go to energy, because they're working on alternative energy. And so Atlantic's biggest offshore wind turbine to rise in the US, and this is in Massachusetts. This is the first offshore power substation in the US, and in October it's expected to start delivering electricity from Vineyard Wind, the nation's first commercial scale offshore wind farm. Now, I know that wind is one of the ways that we have attempted to generate energy up at the bug out location. For us, it didn't work that well. So it's interesting to see this come online and how well it will do. We've basically replaced it with a lot more solar, which has been a lot more effective for us. But by 2024, this project is expected to generate enough electricity to power 400,000 homes. We'll see, we're not that far from 2024, so it'll be interesting to pay attention to this. They want us to go completely online, and they would love us if we held all of our equity on our phones, but basically online. But part of what they're missing is cybersecurity. So is your information really secure? Because the 2023 attack surface, let's take a look at this. More than 9 out of 10 security professionals surveyed expected AI-enabled threats to affect their organizations this year. 9 out of 10. Now, these things are basically invisible because they really don't want you to understand how vulnerable your information and your data is. But you can see 9 out of 10 security professionals are expecting to be attacked by the wonderful AI. We only really hear about how great things are, not about the downside. But everything, I don't care what it is, everything is a double-edged sword. And so you have the good of it, but you also have the bad of it. So if you have physical gold and silver outside of the system, you can make sure, and cash as well, you can make sure that that's secure. It's offline. So even if we have the grid go down, if you grow or have your store of food, it goes back to the mantra. Food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. Get it done. Be as independent and self-sufficient and have a strong foundation so that no matter what happens, you're okay. You're secure in all of those areas. I happen to be talking about cybersecurity right now, but security goes to every single area. In addition, 60% of organizations affected by ransomware paid demand to allow recovery, how many times? Twice or more. Now, do you think that they're only going to cut those costs, or are those costs going to transfer down to you? So you can see that this is a growing problem, and you have to determine if you want your wealth foundation to be subject to this or impervious to it. I prefer to have it private in my possession, because we know if you don't hold it, you don't own it, and perception means nothing in a court of law. I love this one, I'm sure most of you will. But barterability, right? We're being taught, and it's wrong. I'm telling you right now, it's wrong. But we're being trained to think that the only function of money is in its ability for you to buy stuff, so barterability. But what do you do if you hold all your wealth in the system and you lose your access to it? There's lovely Wells Fargo in the news again. Wells Fargo customers scramble after deposits disappear from their accounts. For the second time this year, Wells Fargo has acknowledged that direct deposits were not showing up in customers' accounts. We recently had another customer that had sent in their personal experience from US Bank, where they had made a deposit into an ATM. The ATM ate their deposits, but didn't re-spit out the checks that they had deposited, rather just that there's a problem with the deposit. And essentially what it turned out to be was too bad, so sad, because the ATMs are actually not owned by the bank, so they can't go in and pull those deposits out. And in the past, where this particular person would go into the bank and have the ability to talk to the branch manager, and the branch manager had some level of authority to make whatever was wrong right, or at least take it up the food chain, I've been informed by this particular person that that's no longer the case, that the manager basically wouldn't talk to her because they had no time, and they could take up to 45 days to respond to her problem with where did her deposits go. So I want you to realize that I'm using Wells Fargo here, but this possibility of losing your deposits goes everywhere across all of the banks. Because though they don't want you to realize this, the reality is they're all insolvent because they're all holding all of those bonds with interest rates up, so market value way down. They just don't want you to know that and try and pull your funds.